In this section, we are going to explore the topic of obsessive thoughts, and I am going to help you to deal with them and eventually get rid of this process of psychic alteration that causes you so much pain. Obsessive thoughts are a key element because they are those that subject you to that process of constant suffering that you cannot detach yourself from when you suffer an emotional trauma or a relationship breakup. It is what drains your energy the most because if you notice, even though the event that subjected you to the affliction you experienced already occurred in the past, you still persist in reliving it over and over again without being able to do anything about it to avoid it. So, from here, you already know that if you cannot dissociate yourself from your ex partner, you do so because you have fallen into a process of obsessive thoughts which lead you to live in a past which you cannot get rid of. In fact, most of the cases that I work on have this component. They are people who try to live in their present, but they simply cannot do so because there is a thought, or a series of them, that manifest themselves under certain circumstances and that they lead to the person who is suffering from this being in a kind of psychic trance. And this is a problem because in the consultation, I cannot get people to talk about the topic that causes their obsession. Because if you notice, by doing so, I am causing them to fall into the trauma from which I want them to dissociate. And therefore, as the first step in your process of healing your obsessive thoughts, I want you to think about precisely what those thoughts are that caused you so much pain. Because the first part of this treatment is for you to recognize that you have obsessive thoughts. If I tell you this, it is because most people do not realize that this is what happens to them. You could even time yourself, I do it in my office, and you will realize that once you fall into obsessive thinking, you can no longer get rid of it. When a person falls into obsessive thinking, 2, 3, 4 minutes can pass, and they will continue talking about what they are obsessive with your ex partner's new relationship, or whatever. The only thing I am looking for here is for you to realize that one, you have obsessive thoughts, and two, that they are activated under certain circumstances. Once you become aware of that, we will be able to begin treatment. I have a page here that I am going to leave you in the materials of this program so that you can identify the obsessive thoughts that overwhelm you. Remember, here we only seek consciousness, nothing more than that. So, what you should do is fill in each of the boxes with the obsessive thoughts that torment you. First, we are going to do it in an instinctive order. You don't need to think about things. Let's bring order to chaos. I constantly think about my ex-partner. I constantly think about my ex-partner's new partner. I constantly think about why she cheated on me. I constantly think about what she did to me to hurt me. As you can see, the thoughts could be infinite, but the idea is that you fill the first part with everything that comes to you. In the following table, what you are going to do is express what happens in that thought. For example, I constantly think about my ex-partner, a general thought, true, but now in the second box, we are going to put what he does, because it is not that you imagine him doing a thousand of things. They might be less. It's usually one, or it could be three. Here, we're going to put what he does in that thought. I think about my ex-partner telling me how much he loves me, for example. Or I think about my ex-partner breaking up with me. Look, we specify what happens in that thought. If I told you this, it is because obsessive thoughts arise first as a physical sensation. At this point in this program, you already have clarity about it, and that physical sensation is transformed into an image or a voice. Here we are going to focus on the image. What do you see in that obsessive thought? Because that thought that you can get rid of is what catalyzes, starts a series of other thoughts that hurt you. Then you will realize that from one thought, an emotional cloud, you drift to an infinite number of thoughts, which come to amplify by 1,000 that tiny pain that you were experiencing at the beginning of all this. That's why the idea of a therapy like this is that you can stop those thoughts and flow with them. So, we have already identified the thoughts that arise in you, which, as you can see, are several. Now, what I want is for you to order them in the following table based on the importance these thoughts have for you. What causes you the most pain? What is the thought that occurs most in your mind? To do this, you are going to assign values to these thoughts from 1 to 10. Being 1, it bothers me little. Being 10, it causes me the greatest pain. Can you see that in some way, this begins to be, in quotes, fun, because it allows you to make explicit what is in your psyche, what is the purpose of this program. Before, you only suffered, now you begin to discover for yourself what causes you that pain. I applied this questionnaire in my consultation, although my idea is that you are always the one who become aware on your own of what is happening to you. Remember that the purpose of a therapy like the one I apply is that you eventually learn to analyze yourself and control those forces of the psyche that control you. So, thanks to this small questionnaire, you already know that you have fallen into a process of obsessive thoughts and you have managed to recognize what those thoughts are and what they are associated with. And better yet, you can now glimpse which is the thought that causes you the most pain and which is the one that is most reiterated in your psyche.